Y'all have had a chance to look over, we'll begin. Say welcome and thank all of you for coming. Before we begin, I want to announce that the Western Kentucky University Lady Hilltoppers, as you know, will host and play in a first-round NCAA game Wednesday night against West Virginia University at 8 o'clock here in Diddle Arena. And the winner of that game will advance to second round at Charlottesville, Virginia against the University of Virginia on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And that'll be at University Hall. Winner of that game will earn the right to come back here and play in the East Regional, which Western will be hosting on March 23rd and the 25th. So encourage all of you to attend. We'd like to have as big a crowd as possible here, obviously. Now, the subject at hand. As you recall, on Friday, August the 5th, I was fortunate enough to be named the 8th president of Western Kentucky University by Western's Board of Regents. And then on Saturday, August the 6th, the Courier-Journal ran a story that on the Regents' decision and put it on its front page, and of course we were very pleased with that. And that newspaper also chose to run a front page headline on the same day about 8 former Western basketball players, and the possibility of improper aid. I think you all will recall that. I'll certainly never forget it. But we ran side by side with that headline on that particular day. Or actually, it got top billing, I got second billing. But I'm not, it was incredible timing, but I'm not here to argue about that or to fuss about that, because most of you know my standard line by now. I don't argue with anyone or get into a fight with anyone who buys their ink by the barrel, so we won't, we're not fussing about that today. But we are here to talk about that, the result of that particular article. As you also know, by August 13th, I had appointed an internal investigation committee and had contacted the NCAA about the article, the appointment of the committee, and our plan to keep the NCAA informed about our investigation. And all of this was done with the approval of the Board of Regents. That committee worked intensely throughout the fall, and I am comfortable with their work. The chairman kept me updated regularly on their progress, and I think at this time it would be very appropriate for me to compliment that committee under the direction of Chairman Franklin Berry, University Attorney. Franklin, are you in here? On the rest of that committee for their work, and you have an attachment in the material that you have that has the memo to the committee in there and identifies the members of that committee. They did an excellent job, and I want to thank them for the work that they did. While at the NCAA convention in January of this year, right after the first of the year, I met with David Burst, who is the associate assistant executive director of the NCAA, to update him on our investigation, another in a continuing step of investigation, as we had said previously we would do. And at that time, I requested that someone from his office come to Western to discuss our findings and to offer suggestions or additional steps that we might take in our investigation. And a member of Mr. Burst's staff spent January the 24th, 1989 on our campus, going over the details of our investigation. He left with very positive comments about our investigation and the other steps we had taken. And he asked that we file a report with the NCAA, which we did on February the 13th. And that was 6 months to the day after the investigation committee was initially appointed. We received the NCAA's response to our report last Thursday, March 9th, 1989. And after discussing that report with individual regents, the decision was made to have this press conference today, exactly 1 month after filing the report with the NCAA and exactly 7 months after the committee was appointed. And we now consider this issue to be closed. I promised the press that I would make the results of our investigation available to you, and I am fulfilling that promise with the distribution of materials you've received today. And if you'll bear with me for a few more minutes, I'd like to go over a few parts of this report that I think are pertinent to our being together today. In the letter to Mr. Burst, dated February the 13th, I made several key points in there regarding the investigation that I want to call to your attention. There were 8 players named in the allegations. We were able to personally interview, the committee was able to personally interview 7 of those players. The 8th continued to refuse and still refuses to this day. We interviewed former coaches Clem Haskins and Don Evans. Each player in his interview stated that his comments to the reporters were either taken out of context or misquoted. All interviewed players except for 2, and one of those being one that we could not interview, said that while participating in the basketball program at Western, they received no money or loans. One later changed his statement. One of those 2 later changed his statement. One player, after his interview and through a former coach's attorney, sent to the committee an affidavit to change his comments to the effect that while participating in the basketball program at Western, he received no money, discounts, or free clothing. 3 of the 7 interviewed players stated that while participating in Western's basketball program, they received either free clothes or discounts on clothes. One of the merchants mentioned by the players stated that he gave no discounts to basketball players. However, another merchant mentioned by the players stated that he gives discounts on clothes to all players and students at Western. Of course, that is not in violation of NCAA rules. Neither of the interviewed merchants stated that he had any knowledge of players receiving free clothing or of another player purchasing the clothing for, or another party purchasing the clothing for a player. One of the 7 interviewed players stated that while participating in the basketball program at Western, he received a plane ticket. This statement was not confirmed by the coaches. Furthermore, none of the local travel agency representatives would confirm the player's statement. Rather, each stated that if the agency issued a ticket to a player, the fare was paid to the best of his or her knowledge by the player. A representative stated they are only required to keep information on ticket issuance for 2 years. No current individual, including the president, faculty representative, athletic director, or any member of the basketball staff of Western, was associated with the basketball program during the period in question from 1980 through the spring of 1986. No player involved in the allegations is presently associated with Western Kentucky University. Furthermore, only one of the players is still participating in the college basketball program at another university. 3 of the players making the allegations completed their athletic eligibility at Western. The remaining 5 players transferred to other institutions. Coaches Haskins and Evans stated that only 2 of the players were starters and that 5 other players were suspended by the coaches at one time or another. The newspaper article stated that Coach Evans provided money to a player. The player denied making the allegation, and Evans denied providing the money. The player stated he did not know Evans during the time that he was at Western, and it should be noted that Evans was not employed at Western at the time of the alleged event. In the interview with coaches Haskins and Evans, they were asked if they or any alumni, staff, or friends of Western Kentucky violated any NCAA rules or regulations during the time that coaches Haskins and Evans were at Western. They stated that they did not violate the rules and they had no knowledge of anyone else violating the rules. And that covers the basic allegations. One of the things the NCAA pointed out to us in our work with them is they were impressed by the variety of things that Western had undertaken that they viewed as mitigating circumstances in this situation. And if you will bear with me, I'd like to mention those to you as well. Western Kentucky initiated the investigation. We weren't forced to do so. And we contacted the NCAA regarding the circumstances. They did not have to contact us. As president, I met with the entire coaching staff within my first 2 weeks on the job to pledge my support for them and to demand that they run a program that is in compliance with the NCAA rules and regulations. Our athletic foundation has sent a letter to all of its members along with the NCAA booklet on recruiting rules and regulations. The membership has been strongly encouraged to direct their assistance efforts through the foundation. Any individual is investigating these allegations to the best of our capability. There are obviously 2 opposing points of views on the items in question, but given all the surrounding circumstances, I must conclude that the allegations were not well founded. I'm pleased to report that I'm firmly convinced that our current basketball program is operating within the guidelines set by the NCAA. And I furthermore pledge to the NCAA that our entire athletic program will operate within those same guidelines. Now, you have a separate correspondence that we received from the NCAA, and I'd like to point out a couple of parts of that. I won't read it all to you. You have it in front of you. But it states simply that they have gone over everything that we have done, and although the information gathered by the university identified possible shortcomings within the jurisdiction of the institution, the information did not appear to warrant submission of a letter of official inquiry by the NCAA. Further, the enforcement staff has concluded that insufficient, reliable information concerning possible violations of NCAA rules within the past 4-year period is available to warrant inquiries by the NCAA. It is my understanding, this is from David Burse, that the institution, through the President's office, has redoubled efforts to emphasize to current coaching staff members that compliance with NCAA legislation is mandatory. Accordingly, it does not appear that further review by the NCAA is warranted. Gentlemen, that concludes the official, ladies and gentlemen, official statements from us. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Yes, sir.
How is it, sir?
Would you identify yourself for everybody?
Yes, I'm John Voscool with the Courier-Journal.
Okay, John, thank you.
How is it that you were able to make the judgment and be confident that the allegations were not well-founded?
Just as a result of all the information we gathered, John, after looking at all that and studying that and rehashing 100 times over, that was our conclusion.
When the committee did its work, would it meet 2 or 3 and talk to these folks, or did the chairman do the interviewing himself? How did it happen, Mr. President?
All committee members were involved all the way through. And they would meet periodically and review what they had done so far and then decide on the next step and go to the next step.
I guess I mean in the interview situations, was it one-on-one with the chairman, or was the full committee present?
Full committee was not present for any interview that I'm aware of. There would be a variety of committee members that would go with the chairman for various times.
Who was the 8th player who declined to be cooperative?
I don't think it's appropriate for us to identify individuals.
Well, a lot of people's names were already in the newspapers, Mr. President.
That's correct.
Who was the 8th player?
I just answered your question.
You don't want to answer that.
That's correct.
It is your belief, though, that there was nothing wrong with players accepting discounts on clothes versus free clothes?
NCAA rules state clearly that any benefits afforded athletes cannot be any different than benefits afforded all the other students that are available to other students. And these discounts, from what we were able to find out, were available to not only other students, but to people in the community, faculty members, whatever.
You're confident, though, none of the players received any free clothing?
We could find no indication they received free clothing. Would you identify yourself? I'm sorry.
Chuck Olmstead, WHAS, Louisville.
Okay, Chuck, thank you.
You're pretty confident no players received money?
We could find no evidence of that. John?
In point C on page 2, where it says all interviewed players except for 2 said that while participating in the basketball program at Western, they received no money or loans. One later changed his statement.
Yes.
And as I gather from the next point, he changed his statement through a former coach's attorney.
That's correct.
An affidavit. How hard upon the heels of his interview did that come in, Mr. President? Is there any way of knowing?
Yeah, there's a way of knowing. I don't mind answering that. Franklin, you remember how long that was?
I think it's about 3 weeks.
3 weeks, something like that.
And
Sometime in that time.
Yeah.
the attorney involved, was that Mr. George Salem?
We can't answer that.
Why not?
I just don't want to answer that. John?
Sir, can I
Chuck?
read into your presence here and your comments that former Coach Haskins and Assistant Coach Evans were not in the wrong, if I can use that adjective?
Can you read that in?
Yes.
Well, you can read it in. I won't say that. No.
What are your thoughts about the former coach now in light of the response?
There is not conclusive evidence to show that they were involved in wrongdoings. Yes, Gene?
Gene Cantrell from the Daily News. Was there at any time an inquiry or an investigation by the NCAA into this based on the newspaper reports?
And none whatsoever. We made all initial contacts.
I'm Bob Hanson with Wave TV in Louisville. Despite then your investigation and the NCAA saying that there is nothing to warrant them doing any investigating, would you say that the Western program from 80-86 was a clean program?
All I can tell you is that we could not find enough conclusive evidence to point out wrongdoings during that time period. I'm now concentrating all of my energies to make sure that the program we have now and will have in the future will be clean.
But as far as looking back and judging whether it was in fact a clean program?
I stand by what I just said.
I'm sorry to back you up,
Okay, John.
President, but getting back to this player who apparently changed his story from in the 3-week time period there. It says that all players except for 2 loans or both.
His initial statements were somewhat similar to what was in the article in the paper. And then he changed that with a sworn affidavit.
Do you believe the players that you talked to, the results you have? Do you think they're telling the truth?
I did not talk to any players.
From what you've read, I'm asking you, do you believe them?
I don't have any reason to not believe them.
As far as the article, you have any more reason to say they were lying then than they are when they talk to the university investigators?
I can't pass judgment on that. I think that's very inappropriate for me to try to do that. I know that Western Kentucky University made every attempt possible to get at the truth. The young men were questioned diligently and relentlessly. As a matter of fact, I, at one point in time, thought about even backing the chairman of the committee down a little bit because he was really going after it, but I decided against that. And he pushed it as hard as he could push it along with the other committee members, and this is the result. And I don't have any reason to question that result.
Sir, you say towards the conclusion of the statement that perhaps this is the result of misquotes, but I'm a little confused. Surely you've asked yourself, why would players who have been under a coach for a long period of time turn around and essentially throw these accusations out? Surely you've asked yourself that.
That's correct.
What do you think?
I have no answer to that. I've been around athletics now and collegiate athletics for quite a number of years. I've been through a major investigation in another institution that was far more detailed than this. Things that are very evident in that kind of investigation and dealing with young people is that egos play a very large role in the life of an outstanding athlete, and how they are led or how they are how questions are asked, the methodology that's used in dealing with these young people. Many times they can be led down one path or another, depending on what maybe someone wants to hear. I knew that on the front end, and as a result, a big part of my directions to the committee centered around questioning that would be straight up, straight ahead, no leading, no bias, no trying to get anything in particular. Straight ahead questions, and let's get to the truth. I think the committee will confirm without question that I didn't lead them to do anything but try to find out the absolute truth. We were not in the business of trying to create a story one way or the other. We weren't trying to get a headline, we weren't trying to get not a headline. We were just trying to get to the bottom line truth. And I stated that from the beginning, and that's the way the questioning went with the athletes. Now, did they answer correctly for us and not for the Courier-Journal? Did the Courier-Journal get them to answer absolutely truthfully, and then they lied to us? Well, I don't have anything in our investigation that shows that they lied to us. So I don't have any reason to question that. Yes, sir.
Were any other players in that period, the allegations, 1980, 1986, were any other players that were on those teams interviewed?
Not by us. I don't think did we, Franklin? No, I charged the committee to investigate the allegations brought forth by the Courier-Journal. straight up. The Courier-Journal indicated in their article, as you recall, at one point that they talked to several other players and could find no wrongdoings or any evidence from those players that they even knew anything else was going on. I didn't see any need to broaden this investigation beyond what had been put in the Courier-Journal's paper.
Gene Berkeley, Center 13. During the investigation, did you speak with anyone from the Western Boosters organization or the man who was the athletic director at that time?
Oh, yes.
And they gave no indication of any wrongdoing?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you had indicated that you hope to get some possible recommendations from, there was a lady you referred to who's coming in
Yes.
down here in, what, June?
June, This is a service provided by the NCAA. I had always heard of this service and had never been at an institution where it had been utilized. And during the Association of State College and University Presidents meeting last November, and talking with the president of Marshall University, I discovered that they had used this service provided by the NCAA. And they were extremely pleased with the kind of work that they do when they come in. They don't come in trying to find things that they can report back to the NCAA. They come in and look at your athletic program from point A to point Z, how you do things, how it's structured, the accountability steps, all the contacts that are made, the relationships, the whole deal. And then they'll come back with a written report and recommendations to the president about things concerning the athletic program and changes we might want to make in order to have a more efficiently run athletic program. If they find anything in there that is sort of a loophole that people might use to do illegal things within our athletic program, they'll point those out to us so we can close those. It's just a service provided by the NCAA, and I requested that service, and they'll be here in June.
Mr. President, when you stepped in as president, was there, I mean, outside of what was in the newspaper, which you obviously found somewhat distressing, was there anything that you found through your own coming up to speed about what was going on at Western since you've been away? Oh, all right. Was there anything that you found disturbing about the athletic program?
No, because it was really in a new phase, I guess, with the new athletic director and the change in all the personnel, I guess, within a couple of years or so just prior to that. All the questions that I was asking when I got here about the operation of our athletic program were being met with the kinds of answers that I expected in terms of accountability, who was reporting to whom, the whole deal. And then with the investigation, it gave us an opportunity to make contacts with various resources in town that were very supportive of the athletic program and to make sure that they all understood what kind of athletic program we were going to run here from this point forward.
Did they seem receptive to that message?
We received no negative response at all.
Getting back to the substance of the report, 3 of the 7 interviewed players stated that they received either free clothes or discounts on clothes. I'd like to try to be as specific as possible. Do you know how many said free clothes, and leaving aside the question of discounts?
No, I can't answer that for you right off, John. The free clothes situation, we couldn't find any backup on the free clothes at all. That was pushed and pushed and pushed, and we couldn't find anything to back up free clothes. Discounts on clothes, yes. But then the investigation continued, and we found that all students could get those discounts on clothes. That was standard practice. It may hurt those athletes' feelings who were getting the discounts to find out they weren't the only ones getting it. I don't know. But the fact is, all students got those discounts. I've talked to faculty members here who get that discount.
Do all students continue to get discounts at these stores, do you know?
No, I don't know. Maybe any idea?
Sir, do you have some pet suggestions of your own based on this experience that you would like to see incorporated in the possible changes?
There are a few things that I don't want to talk about right now until I get some more information. We'll make a few changes, but not many. I mean, I have confidence in our athletic director, Jimmy Fikes. He's going to run a good, clean shop. He knows exactly where I stand. There's no question about that. I'm of the opinion after all of these years that there's not but one place all of the enforcement can can be handled, and that's straight from the President's office. The President has to make a statement early on, loud and clear, and unequivocal, and that we're not going to cheat. And that message has to go down the line all the way. I think you see David Rozelle making that statement at the University of Kentucky. People are objecting to that statement, but most people are appreciative of that statement. We're making that same statement at Western. I made it before I ever came on board during the interview process. I've continued to make it after that, all the way up to this day, and I reaffirm it today, that we're going to run a clean athletic program.
When you say that there are a few things that you would like to see and you weren't going to be specific, would they be under the headlines of?
Nothing's under the headlines
guidelines
anymore, I
of
hope.
lobby
Yeah.
of,
Okay. Thank you.
of better communication, or are you going to require almost veto power over line by line, rules by the athletic department?
Communication things, I believe. And a lot of those are already being in place. See, a lot of things have just fallen in place this fall as we've seen things and we've cleaned up and cleared up and lines of authority and so forth. We're taking care of that as we go, and I feel very comfortable with it. I really feel good about it.
You mentioned that President Rozelle at UK was making a clear statement, as you were, that there would be cheating tolerated. And you said that people are objecting to that statement. I'm confused. Is that at UK or Western?
I think that was an editorial statement I probably shouldn't have made. I'm reading this in the Courier-Journal, that there are people who object to Rozelle's tough stand. I'm not finding that at all as I go across this state. I'm finding that citizens of this state want athletics to be run clean. That's what I'm finding. Now, there are going to be the diehards out there, I'm sure, who will never give in to that. But that's what this state wants. And as long as CEOs want that for their institutions, that's what's going to take place. Because as long as everyone down the line in an institution knows that's the way it's going to be run, and if you're found out not running it that way, you're gone, it gives a great incentive. And let me say about my colleague, Dr. Rozelle, that I absolutely am supportive of the direction he has taken with the UK investigation.
Feel a bit of a kinship with him, at least during these last few months?
Well, I had a kinship with him before I ever got here because I've been through one of these before. But unfortunately, I have a renewed kinship once I got here.
I asked you before what you think led to this. Could there have been a grudge maybe between the players and the coach?
Gosh, I don't know. It'd be tough to speculate on that. You know, one would have to guess at a spinoff of another investigation going on in this state sort of drifted down this way. Someone trying to get some statements in. I don't know. Yes, ma'am.
Janine Howard, WKYU. The interviews with Clem Haskins, they shed no light on how a situation like this could have started and snowballed.
No, not really. I mean, he denied it. He said, you know, we just didn't get involved in that. You read in the original article, several of his players were very supportive of Coach Haskins. You know, he indicated the possibility that since these players were suspended from time to time, that maybe some of them weren't as comfortable with the situation as they need to be, and maybe that led to something. But all that is pure speculation. I mean, there's no answer to that.
I'm sorry to ask this follow-up question again. I'm trying to make sure I understand it. When you say that one would have to guess that a spinoff of an investigation going on elsewhere in the state may have led to the story in the Courier-Journal,
Key word is guess.
Are you specifically putting forth that it may have been related to the UK investigation, just so I know what you're talking about?
Well, no, I don't want to specifically say that. They had one common coach that crossed over both of those. So as we tried to guess here, I mean, you know, I'm a brand new president in the state of Kentucky. Why on earth is this happening, and why on earth is it announced the day that I'm announced? What in the world's going on? Why would someone choose that to do that? Well, is there a common thread between something else going on in the state that another newspaper broke the story on, and what's going on here? Well, there was a common assistant coach that crossed over both of those. So is that some reason behind why this may have occurred. I don't know. It's all a guess.
Speaking of
You
that
asked the
common-
question, I'm just trying to answer your
I
question.
see what you're saying. Speaking of that common assistant coach, did the committee interview Dwayne Casey?
No.
They chose not to, or he wasn't available?
But it wasn't part of the original allegations. Other questions?
Who else was on the committee? How many members? Was
You
it
should
in
have
the-
that. It's all in there.
Okay.
Kinds of questions they ask were not run in and sort of keep the door open a little bit and say, did you do this or did you not do it? You didn't do it, fine, and run out the door. It was not that kind of investigation. It was a hardcore, keep pushing, and see if somebody will break kind of deal. Because the committee knew that my stance on this was, we want to know the truth and we want to bring it to an end, whatever it is. And if it's, as I said in the beginning, if the news was bad for Western, then we would confess and say, this is what happened, we found that out, and we throw ourselves on the mercy of the NCAA. But if it turned out that there was not conclusive evidence that these things occurred, or if it even split out, some were and some were not, that those things on which there was not conclusive evidence, then we would stand up tall for Western and say, wait a minute, we may have been accused falsely. The evidence is not conclusive. And we would make that statement as well. And we went through this investigation. The committee pursued it as hard as any committee I could have ever asked to pursue anything. And the results were inconclusive. And that's what we're here to state today.
And you feel you have the full truth?
I have no reason to doubt what the report says.
One other thing, and I'm sorry to back up to this again, but this is also point C on page 2. I sense a conflict here. It says on its face, all interviewed players except for 2. And I believe during your remarks on that, you mentioned that the 2 included the 1 player who was not interviewed.
That's correct.
So on the sheet, it's wrong.
No. All interviewed players, well, let me see if you got a good point here, John. You got to win something out of this. Let me see if I can give you that one. I guess technically you're right, John. I want to give you credit for that. Congratulations. Yes, sir.
Paul Ralph from the Daily News. Who are the merchants involved in the allegations?
I think any reference we want to make to that, we'd ask you to pull that from the Courier Journal story.
I feel like it's common knowledge among students that they are able to get discounts from these stores.
I can't answer that. Of course, ours just went through 86. I don't know if that still occurs today or not.
Did the committee try to find any sort of advertisements, notices that might have been published in the community paper or the College Heights Herald announcing to students that they could get discounts at?
We did not.
Where do you go from here? You just
Stay clean. We make sure we're running a clean program and go forward. As far as we're concerned, the issue is closed.
will this committee stay together to do it? Will you ever use them again? This is
No.
strictly a-
I'd last met with that full committee before Christmas. Met with the chairman after Christmas. Let me back off of that a little bit, because I met with the committee, Franklin, right before I sent the report, or right after I sent the report, I believe, didn't I, to the NCAA, just to inform the committee of the
Yeah.